I will introduce you. I will not make you guys introduce yourselves the way I make Zach do, because Zach delays himself. I'll go, I'm Barrett Gruber, and I'll wait, and then Zach would go, I'm Zach King. It's like, what are you doing? You have one job, man. That is going to make the cold open.
This is Bill Kimler, co-host of the Black, White, and Blue in the South podcast. This Halloween, stand out from the crowd with ZJZDesigns.com. Their brand new limited edition spooky prints are here to haunt your wardrobe in the best way possible. With 5 new chilling designs, you'll be ready for trick-or-treating, haunted houses, and everything this spooky season has to offer. Whether you're getting festive for the holidays or just looking for unique, high-quality designs to up your style game, ZJZDesigns.com has you covered. Shop now at ZJZDesigns.com and discover the t-shirts that'll make you stand out in any season. Don't get caught without the coolest Halloween t-shirt. Grab yours before they disappear. ZJZDesigns.com.
Barrett again from the All About Nothing podcast, and what the pod was that to tell you that late fall registration is open now till October 7th for several sports. Sunday at M Avenue in West Columbia, Super Rec Same Team Pitch Kickball, where your team pitches to itself. Registration also open now through October 7th for Tuesday night sand volleyball at Pollywogs on Woodley Way off St. Andrews Road. As well, hit fall hard with Wednesday co-ed flag football at Bray Field. Finally, for late fall, 7-week Tuesday night bowling is open now through October 23rd at Bolero in Casey. 22 team slots available for teams of 6, so sign up now as these team spaces will fill up and sell out. Check out everplaysocial.com for more information and registration. Again, everplaysocial.com. Everplay Sports and Social League. Play, socialize, and have fun.
The All About Nothing podcast may have language and content
that isn't appropriate for some.
Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome, Nothingers, to another episode of the All About Nothing podcast. This is episode number 226. I am Barrett Gruber, and I am joined this week by Mr. Donald Brock Jr. and Zach's replacement for this episode, Mr. Leroy Green. Welcome, fellas.
What's up, man? How you guys doing today?
Good. Thanks for joining me. And breaking news. So when you're listening to this on the Monday that it releases, Hurricane Helene just made Category 4 status a few short hours before it actually makes landfall. So please subscribe to the show, share the show. That's how we get new listeners. Also, if you could please consider supporting the show financially by visiting our website and clicking on the support link. If you can't do that, please drop us a review, hit 5 stars, give us a thumbs up, or leave us a comment. All of that helps drive us up higher in the show ratings on all these podcast platforms. I want to thank real quick Shelby Spencer and O'Shawn McClendon. Hall of Horrors opens. Actually, it is open now. It's open through the rest of October. Friday nights, Saturday nights, as well. Sunday, October 27th, Wednesday, October 30th, and Thursday, October 31st. You can visit thehalloforrors.org for tickets and details. Also want to mention Everplay Sports and Social's late fall signups are going on now for 7-week bowling at Bolero in Casey. That's going to be through October 23rd. So visit everplaysocial.com for details and registration. So Donald Brock Jr., who is a council member from Blythewood, and I'm going to mention it every time because you're one of the few politicians that comes on enough that I get to mention it. Leroy Green, obviously, host with Michael Patterson of Nerdy by Nature Productions. We're trying
the We Trying channel. Yep, that's
on,
us.
YouTube. So make sure to check that out. We are going to discuss Comic-Con today because we've had about a month or so to recover. Do you feel recovered yet, Brock?
No, I never recovered. It's on to something else. So no.
Well, yeah, I would say because I guess we'll just go ahead and break the news. Coastal Comic-Con is on.
Yeah, so coming. It's coming back for year 2.
What are the details? Weekend. What are we looking at?
Yep, two-day event in Wilmington, North Carolina at the Wilmington Convention Center, which is right downtown Wilmington. they got a bunch of rain either last week or the weekend before, so they're in the process of drying out. We're about to get a lot of rain over the next day or so, and then we'll start that process. But it's March 1st and 2nd of 2025. So we've got about, October, November, December, 5 months or so between now and then to get that show on the road. Very similar setup to Soda City. We have our exhibit hall with vendors and artists. We'll have the VR room. We have a panel room. We have our celebrity guests. We have the vintage video game room put on by Retro Reaction. I always want to say Retro Rewind. I guess it's from my VHS days. But I think it's Retro Reaction. They're there. Again, it's a very similar setup to Soda City. So it's just kind of taking our model and what we think works and what we found that people enjoy and just taking it to another market. And of course, we're starting a third show next year in Myrtle Beach as well, which is
really?
Yep. Oh, you didn't know this?
No, I didn't. This is brand new. This is brand new information.
Oh, there we go. There we go. It's called Boardwalk Comic Con, and it's at Myrtle Beach, and it is October, I think, 4th and 5th. It's the first weekend in October in Myrtle Beach. I think it's the 4th and the 5th.
That's outstanding.
Again, similar setup. Myrtle Beach will be very interesting because it'll all be in one room. They have their exhibit hall is 3 salons or whatever you want to call them. It's about combined. It's a smidge under 101,000 square feet. So it's the largest space we've ever taken. It's all contiguous. There's no columns or anything like that. So it's going to be interesting to see how we kind of set this up, simply because like our panels will be in the same room. Our video games, our exhibit hall will all be in there. Just because we may have to, do one of the floating walls or air walls 3/4 of the way to kind of prevent too much overflow noise or something. But we'll figure it out. We're not the first to do this in one room, and we certainly won't be the last. But a lot of the people down in Myrtle Beach, especially a lot of city leaders, a lot of CVB leaders, are extremely excited about this event. We've met with them. We hosted someone from Myrtle Beach this past year. We hosted at Soda City. We hosted someone from, I'll just go ahead and say it, not that it matters, someone from Greensboro. We've looked at, that market, and we're always looking for new places to go and expand. And the lady that came up from Myrtle Beach is just beyond excited. I actually have a little trailer that I'll send you, Barrett. You can drop it at the end of this video. You want to for Myrtle Beach. It's kind of a cool little teaser. So next year, we will have 3 events. So you say, are you rested and recovered? No, it doesn't ever stop. The only benefit is that you can create economies of scale when you have multiple events, because if you find somebody that you think works in market A, you can just tag them and bring them into market B and market C, and you can kind of kill a bunch of birds with one stone. That, and we've had a waiting list for Soda City for years. We don't have enough space in Wilmington, so I don't believe filling up and having top-notch vendors and artists in Myrtle Beach will be a problem. And we've even seen people online say, "I really wish there was a show in Myrtle Beach." Guess what? There's gonna be. We're coming. So
Ami did an episode of Welcome to Wonderland this past week with James Maxey, who is one of the authors that comes to or has been to Comic-Con here, Soda City Comic-Con, and he was excited to find out that there is going to be that Coastal Comic-Con was going to be back, and I mentioned to him during the recording that Boardwalk Comic-Con was going to be taking place in October of 2025. So at least from vendor standpoint, it sounds like they're prepared to ride this with you and your staff, Brock.
I think so. A lot of vendors we kind of made the official announcement for Boardwalk at Soda City this year, and a lot of people literally wanted to sign up on the spot. And while I am I'm not averse to taking people's money when they want to throw it at me, I was like, you got to give us a little bit of time to create a floor plan to kind of for us to kind of lay it out and see what it's going to look like. I certainly never want to promise people something and then not be able to deliver. So that would be in my opinion, a bad way to get started. So,
Yeah.
we're going to have to do a couple of more site visits. We're going to have to work out a little bit of them, iron out some of the details from the logistical standpoint. But, parking is not a problem in Myrtle Beach. Finding a room is not a problem in Myrtle Beach. It's a big ass convention center. There's a hotel connected right to it, a Sheraton. So you can stay at the hotel, literally come down the elevator, walk across what do they call that? The lobby, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then you go into the convention center. So it'll be, it'll be a cool event. I think in Myrtle Beach. I mean, it's the beach. It's Comic-Con at the beach. What is not to like? And it shouldn't be too terribly hot. So
Agreed.
It's right after the Labor Day weekend, but
and not to put down Myrtle Beach at all, but that's off season.
Yeah,
and
it
rooms
is.
are a lot less expensive.
They are. We're gonna work with the local tourism authority, and we're gonna get some room rates and some room blocks, and make sure that people can get down there affordable, have affordable weekend.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we might even come up with some packages where you buy tickets and hotels and all that stuff, and you can get it even cheaper. The sky's the limit, really, in my opinion, with this. And I think that Myrtle Beach, it's not your mom and dad's Myrtle Beach anymore. A lot of, what do they call it? Used to call it Dirty Myrtle or Myrtle Manor. I think that was one of the shows that they had on one of those TV stations or TV. Yeah, it didn't exactly paint it in a positive light. It's not like that anymore. We went down to Myrtle Beach to do an on-site. Oh God, I guess it was it might have been in April of this year. Well, the only reason I remember that is because I went to watch a hockey game on Sunday night and then drove down after the game from Raleigh to Myrtle Beach and spent the night and then did a on-site Monday morning. But it's completely different. I mean, they're really working to clean it up. There's a lot of young families that have moved from the Northeast, from the Midwest, from areas. What do you call Texas and I guess the Southwest? I don't know.
Yeah.
But Horry County is one of the fastest growing counties in the state, and South Carolina, according to the U.S. Census Bureau, is the fastest growing state in the nation.
Yeah.
Shockingly, I never would have thought that. But a lot of people, especially with the advent of remote work, are moving from Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey. They're selling their houses up there. They're getting top dollar. They're coming down to South Carolina. They're buying a house most of the time in cash, and they've got a bunch of cash in their pocket. We can have an economics lesson if we want, but they're buying these houses with cash, and then they've got a pocket full of cash left over, and they can do their remote work. So they can get New York and Pennsylvania and New Jersey salaries living in, South Carolina expenses. It's working out great. The schools are getting better. It's for a lot of people, it's a win-win. And I mean, we're seeing that here in the Midlands. I know they're seeing it in the upstate. It's not unique to the Low Country. So
taxes are cheaper here in South Carolina.
Taxes are, well, I don't know about Richland
in...
County, but yeah, some other places they are. Yeah.
Lexington.
Richland.
Yeah, we're definitely excited about Coastal Comic-Con because that one being the next one up. I assume because it is just been inked that everything is now set up. Yeah. That the likelihood is we don't have anyone to announce yet as far as potential.
No, but it's probably fair to say that Wilmington's a little over 3 hours away. So I don't know how many people traveled from Wilmington or the Wilmington area, other than Steve and his wife and mother-in-law, came from Wilmington to Columbia. So it's safe to say that you could see some of the same guests that we've had in years past at Soda City go to Wilmington, simply because, they want to meet the same people too. You could see the same guests in 2025. You could see the same guests at Coastal, Soda City, and at Boardwalk. Because again, sometimes it's easier just to kill three birds with one stone. If you've got a guest that you like and you think that the general audience is going to like it, just sign them for all three shows. Sometimes you can get a better deal. It's like buying in bulk.
Yeah.
I'd like to see it Coastal that was at the last show.
Who would I like to see, or who would you like to see?
Yeah. No, who would you like to see?
Well, we all saw what Peter Cullen did.
Yeah. Fantastic.
I mean, it's hard to argue that he wouldn't make a great guest. I don't know if they would be interested in doing a first year show, which Boardwalk would be. but we're not a first year. We're not a first year event. I wouldn't look at Boardwalk, and I didn't look at Coastal this past March as a first year event. It was an event in a new location, but we already had 8 Soda Cities under our belt, so it's not like we didn't know what we were doing.
Yeah.
So again, we all saw what Peter Cullen did. Steve and I like to think, or Steve more so than me, because he tells me all the time how cheap I am, and he's not wrong. It's true. It's true. I'm a bit of a fiscal conservative, so he's not wrong. But a guest like Cullen moved the needle. We saw an increase in attendance. And whether somebody shows up to meet a celebrity, get an autograph, or not, just shows up and look, they all come through the gate, right? And so we are continuing to look for individuals that are needle movers, that are going to actually inspire people to get off their asses and come out and hang out with us for the weekend. And I'm hoping that you two clowns are going to be there this year, broadcasting, interviewing. I'm glad you're on the podcast, Leroy, because I was actually thinking about you. I was laying in the bed the other night. Don't go there. And you popped into my head. And
why would I go there if you telling me that
Barrett,
you were
absolutely.
dreaming?
No, I wasn't dreaming. I was awake. I was awake.
I mean, of course you were awake.
I mean,
I was definitely.
I have a halo up here.
One more button.
All right. So, no, I actually did think about you the other night, and I only say that because I wanted to, and I'm glad you're here, because I also meant to call Barrett and be like, hey, get Leroy to join, but then he told me, I was like, oh, great, you've already read my mind. But I remember you went around and you tried to interview as many of the guests as you could, and I wanted to ask you, one, to ask you how that turned out, and number 2, I wanted to hit you up and say, hey, get me some edited videos, and then so I can post it on my socials.
So since we've done the event, me and Michael, we talked about it, and we literally tried to hit every single person. And I have to say, this event I won't say was the easiest. Like, we worked, we didn't sit down, because we were literally as soon as we saw a lull, we were like, okay, let's go see if we can get this person. Let's see if we can get this person. The only 2 we missed was Carrie Payton and Sam Whitwer. And only reason why was because every time we were doing an interview, we would see the lull that Whitwer and Carrie would do. And then when they got busy, we would it's literally we're watching. And then, so we missed those 2. Those were the 2 that we missed that we did want to get. It was great. I'm not gonna lie to you. It was one, the one thing that we're trying to do, and we can talk about this later, you want to get somebody who actually wants to do an interview, but also be conscious of their time, because every time you talk to me, could be missing out on an interaction with the fan. And yes, I am a fan, but I don't want to take somebody else's opportunity to meet Optimus Prime or Wolverine or the voice of Storm. I can fanboy out later. You can handle what you need to do. I have to say, this was, me and Michael, we talked about it. This was, I'm trying to articulate this appropriately. This was the most work we did outside of when we worked at the station. But this, I want to say, it elicited the most emotional response because of the people we got to talk to, because of the fans that we were of their work. So, perfect example, Michael interviewed Roger Clark.
Surprise hit, by the way.
For those people who played Red Dead Redemption, he has other things that he's done, but a lot of people know him for Red Dead Redemption, the motion capture, all that stuff. So as we're interviewing Roger, Guy is on the other side watching and freaking geeking out, because unbeknownst to a lot of people, and it's in the interview that we did with Guy, one of Guy's first projects was working with Roger. So they knew each other.
Really? Oh, really? Yeah. I did not know that.
Yes. So as we're doing Guy's interview. So we did Roger's interview. Michael did that one. And Roger's like, this is the first time I've come to Columbia. This is great. I really like this here. As we're doing the interview, Guy's kind of geeking out. So then we do Guy's interview a little later. And Guy was like, I was wondering when you guys would get to me. And then we realized Guy went to Lander.
Yeah, play tennis.
On a tennis scholarship. So as we're doing the interview, Roger walks through the interview, and you have this moment of them talking about like working on a video game back in the years back, and just Roger just being really appreciative of the fact that people are still loving Red Dead Redemption, people are still enjoying the game, and he's like, this is about 6 years later, and I'm still getting that love from this game. So that was like that little that 6 degrees of separation, Kevin Bacon, whatever, that Guy came to South Carolina. He's back in South Carolina. He is on a panel, and he's in a celebrity room where somebody that he worked with is in South Carolina with him that he years ago. And so like you have this awesome moment. Then you have somebody like, Matthew Watterson, who's like, I knew about X-Men 97. He's the voice of Magneto. I knew about the X-Men. I knew about the animated series. I knew about working, with a team, but I didn't realize what I was getting into. Like he knew the weight of the character, but he didn't realize like if they would accept him, you're taking over this voice, you're the new guy. And hearing him have the affinity for the character, one of my favorite characters of all time, and hearing him say, oh, I really appreciated this. The fans accepted me, but I really went into this like hoping I do a good job. And that's really cool to actually talk to people who like, we've all heard the different things where like, if you remember back in the day, being a television actor was not as big as being a movie actor. Being an animated actor, a voice actor was not, you weren't considered, a real actor, so to speak. These connotations that you get, or these stereotypes or assumptions. And it's like, and you get to talk to these people, and they're realizing the fan base. One of the things, the unique thing, I don't know if you guys listened to the panel that the X-Men 97 panel, I thought was so amazing, and everybody echoed it. And it made me mad when I heard it, every time I heard it. But then I thought about it. I was like, it was a little bit of pain for something greater. So everybody on the X-Men panel, who was one of the original voice actors from back in the day, in the 90s, did not realize how big and popular the show was. They didn't realize how much the fans appreciated them and enjoyed their work. So when me and Michael talked to Allison Seeley Smith, when we interviewed her, she talks about being a shut-in. She talks about not getting out there, not interacting, and not even knowing that comic book conventions happened, and not knowing that there was a love for her as Storm, and didn't realize the effect that she had. And it's one of those things where she talks about representation matters, because it's not just the fact of you get to see somebody, you get to see yourself. Other people get to see people who they don't normally get to see in different positions, in different situations. And I'm working on one of the videos, because her interview brought me to tears.
Yeah.
I had to walk away at one. Me and Michael, she profoundly, like, I don't think people understand. And that's why I said, for her to hear and see the outpouring support was amazing. And for them to realize, like, a lot of people forget when the X-Men movies came out. Remember, the X-Men cartoon came out, the animated series came out first, then the movies came out. People were upset Halle Berry was cast as Storm, because the voice that Allison gave us as Storm was not Halle Berry. Like, that's how powerful the voice actor, Allison's voice was, voicing Storm, that Halle Berry was cast, and people were like, nope, not buying it. And you're like, that's Halle Berry, man. And you're like, nope, doesn't sound like her, doesn't bring the gravitas. I want that. And that's the kind of thing that they got to experience coming to Soda City, that they've got the experience when they go to these conventions, meeting fans and realizing, one, my work was important. It wasn't just a silly cartoon. The situations that we were put in, the voices that we did resonated with people to the point where, as a legacy sequel, it works. People literally came out in droves. I saw so many people dressed as Storm, Rogue, Wolverine. I saw a bunch of people dressed as the entire X-Men 97 cast. We posted those pictures. So I hated how they did not know this work was important. Like, that hurt me every single time, because I'm thinking, oh, they're just living it up. They're just really appreciative. And to not know that there were rooms of fan mail that never got answered, that they had no idea that this work meant so much to so many people. But to see the way that they got to appreciate it, and sitting on that panel, seeing small children coming up, grown adults who got to introduce, who watched the X-Men cartoons when they were a kid, and then got to introduce that cartoon to their children. That's a powerful thing. And it's a powerful thing that we got to experience here in Soda City, here in South Carolina. Because let's be honest, for a while, South Carolina sometimes wasn't known. You talked about Dirty Myrtle. We were not known for good things for a while. It seemed like every time you turned on the news and South Carolina was in it, it was like, oh, what happened now? And so to have something like Soda City, to have something big in the nerd world, on the stage, having these guests who can go anywhere else. They came here, they spent their time, and they enjoyed it. That was the one thing that everybody said. A lot of people who had never been here were like, I really like this. Yeah. I really like Columbia. I really like South Carolina. And I really like this event. And Peter Cullen said it. Roger Clark said it. Every single person that we interviewed was like, wow. And that was, for somebody like me, I really enjoyed that. Well, and so that was really cool to have somebody, basically who comes to your home, you invite them, and they're like, you have a really nice home. And you're like, yeah, I do. Wow. And so that was one of the coolest things about it, like really getting to talk to people, and people whose work you admire, and them actually being, they always say, don't meet your heroes. No, this was really cool to meet all of these. Everybody was cool. Yeah. And that was what, there was no bad fan interaction. It was like we would sit back, me and Michael, and kind of watch people just walk up, and just like you see little kids with little stuff in their hand and their little cosplay walking up, or adults walking up to Peter Cullen with a transformer, and then walking away and seeing that look on their face. That's what this shit is about, man. So,
you didn't mention Michael Bell. Did you all get to talk to Michael Bell?
I did.
Dude, Michael Bell is the dirtiest old man I've ever met in my entire life. But he was so much fun. So Zach and I got to interview Michael Bell. It was at the end of the day. It was on the end of the day Saturday, and everything was sort of shutting down. Kari Payton was still standing over there talking to a couple people. So, but just getting to talk with Michael Bell, just to shoot the shit and talk to him about like all the things that he's done. But a lot of it was just talking about like South Carolina and how he hadn't been to South Carolina or Columbia before. And it was such a cool interaction. I was hoping this would work out. I did send Guy a message because we've been chatting over Instagram since the show. I was going to try and get him. I was going to try and get him to jump on real quick, but okay. I don't think it's going to work out. But exactly the same thing. I think when it came down to some of the interactions that we had with like the cast of the X-Men 97, talking to Matthew Watterson or Guy or Adrian Huff. There was with Adrian, you get the same sense. There wasn't this huge social media internet thing going on when they were doing X-Men, the animated series back in 93 to 97, and they had no idea that there was this big of a draw. Like they had no idea what impact they were having. Fox didn't tell them that they had this much influence. They didn't really. It was loosely tied to Marvel, but through licensing, so it wasn't necessarily like they didn't have the tie to like the comic book section of it, so they didn't know. And to be able to do these Comic-Con conventions and interact with the fans, especially because, and fucking great on Kevin Feige for bringing X-Men 97 out, and putting that forward, because they may still be living in denial and not knowing the impact that they had from 93 all the way up till now.
I think they know.
Now, well, they know now, yeah. But that was definitely something you got out of them. But yeah, it was such a cool, like I said, last year was amazing. This year was more work, but for some reason it felt like that work was even more enjoyable than last year.
Well, I can touch on that too. Quite frankly, boys, as we grow, it should always be more work. And hopefully it doesn't feel like work, because what's the saying? If you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. Whatever. That's bullshit. That doesn't apply. But yeah, I mean, it is more work, but hopefully it's more rewarding, because at the end of the day, like, we feel extremely confident that we finally broke through the 10,000 attendee ceiling. So yeah, give me a bell. Yeah, give me a bell and a stick tap for that. So, but there we go. And it's more work. It's more work on my staff. It's more work on us from a planning phase. We had never done anything like the Peter Cullen VIP meet and greet, so that was a trial by fire. A lot of people say, "Well, how do you do this?" It's like, fuck if I know. Sometimes it's just OJT. We're learning as we go. Yeah. So, a lot of the finances and the logistics is easy. We can kind of plan that, essentially like a backstage kind of thing. But then when the rubber meets the road and, you're expecting to be, 4 left turns, and all of a sudden somebody blows a tire, and next thing you know, there's a pileup, and you're like, oh shit, you got to pivot. There's all that. And as we continue to add more and more to the event, with what we can add, simply due to limitations that we bump up against, it's gonna be more work. It's gonna be more work for you. It's gonna be more work for hopefully our vendors and our artists, because there's more people through the door that are coming in, and a lot of people I think are gonna start. I'm trying to push this. I'm gonna need help. But I want people to start when August rolls around. I want them to say August is Comic-Con month. I want everybody to start thinking about Comic-Con the moment August 1 shows up, and they have a whole month, so to speak, to mentally and physically, because it's tiring days, to prepare for Soda City Comic-Con, because in August of 2025 it's our 10th show, so that'll be our 10th anniversary, and we're going to try to beat this past August. Can we do it? I mean, I don't know.
Yes.
We're gonna give it the old college try. So, what does that look like? I don't know. Are we gonna do some cool shit and have some special limited edition stuff? Yeah. There's already shit running through my head, like,
shirt cannon.
No, we're not shooting anybody with T-shirts. That's a horrible idea.
All I can see in my head when you said shirt cannon was like, all I can hear is, and if you answer this question right, you get a T-shirt, and all I hear is a poof, and I see a child just go poof. It's just hitting the chest with it.
No, it's the scene. It's the scene from UHF where he goes, "Drink from the water hose." Spray him down with a
all
fire
I'm just
hose.
seeing is a child just flying.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a video from TikTok. You can see a kid just... no. In fact, I think that would even go against our functioning weapons policy, because you probably could drop somebody with a shirt cannon,
Yeah.
So, I'm thinking, 10 years, golden badges, or just something, some sort of cool stuff that we can do. We're tossing around ideas for guests already.
Yeah.
What's gonna move the needle and make this event the leading pop culture event in South Carolina. If we're not number one, we're number two. There's one in Greenville that, I have mixed feelings about. But that's for another time and probably an offline conversation. But, we're not going to be the biggest because we don't have the biggest space. I recently attended an event where they're talking about expanding the convention center. They're talking about potentially adding a hotel that's actually connected to the convention center and adding 18,000 or something square foot ballroom. I'm like, oh yeah, that's great, but what about the other? We'll see. So they want to make the exhibit hall 96,000 square feet, so that would be tripling the size with it. So the 72,000, an additional 72,000 square feet. I'm like, then we can talk, because I'm under the impression that is truly the limiting factor to the event, because the more you have, the more people you can potentially attract, because the more you can diversify.
Right.
Yes.
So, but the powers that be, I'm not going to name anybody specifically, but they want a hotel before they will greenlight the expansion of the exhibit hall and additional meeting rooms. And I'm like, I think you're doing it wrong, but whatever. I don't have the $90 million to do it, so I don't have a say. But yeah, so, full circle back to, it feels like more work. Well, yeah, of course it feels like more work. It's more work for us too. It's always going to be more work. There's, we probably plan this event for 6+ months. Now, we're not working on it every day like it's a 9 to 5, but
right.
You're making small incremental moves down the field till you reach the goal line, and then you cross the goal line on Saturday morning at 9:30 or 10 o'clock or whenever we start letting people in. So, and there are always snafus. Like, we had trouble this year with our devices. They didn't want to sign into Eventbrite. They didn't want to sign into PayPal. And we're like, oh, crap, here we go. But, we pivoted and we fixed that, and we won't have that problem moving forward. If we have to buy new iPads every year, so be it. That's what we'll do.
That was what I was going to ask, is what were some of the challenges from this year that
was probably the biggest challenge. We had to just figure out ways to, people are nice enough to download the app and use their phone, or lend us their iPad or something like that. I have a great staff. I can't say enough wonderful, amazing things about the ladies and the few guys that work with us. Everybody kind of knows their role. They're multi-talented. They've been cross-trained. They can pretty much do almost anything from an event management perspective. So, that's another reason why we have confidence that we can pack up and take our show on the road and move into other markets and not skip a beat, because everybody that comes to Soda City, they go to Wilmington. Everybody that goes to Wilmington, they'll come with us to Myrtle Beach. They're excited. It's kind of like a mini vacation, but it's not, because they're working. But at the same time, they enjoy the success of the event. They take pride in the overall event success and growth. They really do.
So Myrtle Beach is not going to just be an exact cookie cutter, because of course the facility is different.
Yeah.
What sort of is there any sort of different vibe that we're going to try and bring to Myrtle Beach, maybe from Soda City? I mean, obviously we can't use a big giant soda cap for the logo.
Oh, we already have a logo.
I have not seen the logo yet.
Oh, well, stand by and I'll email it to you right now.
You know what? In post production, you're seeing it right here.
But you're right. Like each, I haven't been to Coastal. I'm hoping to go. It depends if my wife gives me permission. Because
what are you talking about, Leroy? I'm rooming with you.
I mean, look, I'm telling you right now. My wife is very proud of me, because I only bought one thing at this last show because I was working so much. But every convention you go to does have a vibe. So Soda City has a vibe. Heroes Con and Charlotte has a vibe. Each convention has its own vibe. So I'm interested to see what Myrtle Beach's vibe, because to me, the convention, like, it's almost like you put the convention on, but the convention takes on a life of itself. The con becomes something based on the fandom itself that comes through the door.
Yeah.
And because, like, Brock talks about it, like, he brings some of these people who come, And you see from the guest list, if you look at last year, a lot of these people were voiceover actors. You know, you have some motion capture people. Sam Witwer, you know, has done. If you play Days Gone, Roger Clark, Red Dead Redemption. I'm trying to think of. Adrian Heff has done some other stuff too.
Assassin's
Same
Creed.
thing. Yes, Matthew Watterson as well. But they bring their own vibe because of the type of actors and the work that they've done. So I'm interested to see what you bring to Coastal and to what's the name of Myrtle's too? What do you
Bam.
Boardwalk? Okay. I like that.
That looks great.
It does.
That looks great.
Yeah, you ask what's the vibe. I can't tell you what the vibe is. I don't think we really determine the vibe, quite frankly.
Yeah.
I think the fans and the attendees to create the vibe.
Yeah, and that's why I'm really interested to see what Myrtle Beach brings to the convention or to a con, because I can't think of any con pop culture related that's ever been in Myrtle Beach.
There was one called XCon several years ago, and I want to say one year it was pretty successful. This might have been, this could have been 15, 20 years ago. I don't remember. Let me Google. One year they brought in Rooker. I know, and that might have been their first year. Let's see, but
I'm not going to lie to you.
Go ahead. I'm listening.
Rooker was one of those guys where every character he plays, I'm expecting this large man, and when I finally met him, I'm like, "You're Michael Rooker," and I'm like, his presence, the way he carries himself on screen. You're thinking this is a hulking of a man at times. You know, this is the dude that put Tom Cruise in the wall. This is the guy who's, you know, I'm Mary Poppins, y'all. This is Savant from Suicide Squad, you know, of the Suicide Squad. When you think about all the different characters this man has played, and you meet him, you're like, oh, wow. His just a larger than life presence.
I can say the same thing about Kari Payton. After meeting him and seeing him at Soda City this past year, you know, because my impression of him was from The Walking Dead, where he was the king, and clearly they put weight on him to be the king.
Yeah,
and I think he also slimmed down a whole bunch after Walking Dead ended. But like, man, that just speaks to his acting skills and how he carries himself in that character, because he's a little guy, you know, he's tiny.
And the funniest thing about that is, for me, my introduction to Carrie is always going to be Teen Titans Go.
Yeah, okay.
Because and so like for me, when I see him, I'm like, and I'm not saying that I couldn't buy him as King Ezekiel, but it was always like this thing where I'm like, you're Cyborg, man. Why are you so mean? like, I didn't get a chance to meet him. He's the one, him and Sam were the two that got away from us, just to meet, you know, like, cause you're a fan, you just want to meet, you know, if I get an interview, that's cool, but just to meet him. But it was just always this interesting thing where you're like, this person's vibe, he plays this character. And then you know him from this other character, and you meet him, you're like, you forget, you're like, damn, you're right, he is an actor. Yeah. Like, it almost like catches you off guard where you're like, oh yeah, I forgot, this is acting.
So yes. I was just gonna say one of the things that I did when I did have an opportunity to go downstairs and walk around, and mostly when we were packing up on Sunday, but just talking to some of the vendors, just to ask them, you know, how was the weekend? How do you guys feel you all does all of the work and the hours and the cost? I said, does it for you, does this, is it worth it?
Does it make sense financially?
Every single one of them said absolutely.
Yes.
Every single one of them said the exact same thing, that Soda City Comic Con is one of the events that they look forward to every year because they know that, one, they don't have to travel far, most of them, and essentially it's easy to set up. Said the staff makes it so easy to get in the door, to start setting up. We get plenty of time to set up. It's on us. And it's those are the things that speak volumes to what you and all of your volunteers, you and Steve and the rest of the volunteers.
So this is you talking about vendors. You talk about like what was it like for them. So this is Ginger Kid Collectibles. I met Jason in Charlotte. Matter of fact, when we covered a couple of years ago. It might have been this year. All of it runs together. Went to Heroes Con in Charlotte. He was there, a vendor, and I met him and we talked Mythic Legions. We talked Mythic Legions action figures and Marvel Legends. And we just, went by his booth, talked, we talked. He was really cool. And I just remember that interaction. And then when he came here, I remembered him and we talked, and I was like, and we actually did an interview. It's on our channel. We talked to him. We talked to his son, and he talks about the event in the interview. And he talked about this was his first time coming. This is the first time being here in Columbia, South Carolina, doing the event. He's like, this is on the calendar now. He's out of Atlanta, and he talks about like, yeah, I'm going to do this show every year now. Or he's like, I'm going to try. And he, like, if you follow him, we follow him on Instagram. We talk about Instagram. We follow him on the gram, and just watching him go to different shows and like setting up. And it was just one of those things where he talks in the interview. He talked about the fact of not just the convention, but also what he was trying to put out there, the vibe. And he's like, he even hooked us up with, a Facebook group where he's like, look, if you like this action figure, this line, here's a Facebook group that the actual people who create the action figures are in. And this is a community that is all about positivity. They're actually at helping customizers. And I had this interaction here at Soda City. I met the man in Charlotte, but I didn't get to have this interaction until he came here. And we literally talked for about a good 20, 30 minutes. I didn't want to take up too much of his time because the man has shit to sell. Yeah. The man has to make some money, but it was a great interaction. And that's one of the things that I think is a credit to Brock, is a credit to staff, credit to Steve, and all the people who worked there, but also to the people who came, because it seemed like everybody who was there wanted to be there. It wasn't like, oh shit, it wasn't like work. And it really was a great interaction. Like, really appreciate it, to the point where I have somebody that, like, yes, there are local vendors. Want to shout out to Scratch and Spin and Heroes and Dragons. York from Heroes and Dragons was killing the game out there. But this is now somebody I do want to, spend money with, because I do want those dollars to go to somebody who's actually doing something, who was that interaction. You want that person to succeed because of the interaction you had, because they had such a good time, but also the positive energy that he gave. And it was just like, hey man, I'm down the road, and now this is on my list of things to go. And keep in mind, this is somebody who goes all over the country doing shows. He was, inviting us. He's like, hey man, you going to Legions Con in Jersey? I'm like, hey man, I just spent $40 on an action figure. My wife ain't let me go shit. So, but you're right. It was the vendors. It is the you may put on the con, you may put on the show, but it is the guests, it is the vendors, it is the fans who actually make the con what it is, because that's what it. Again, I say this. That's what this shit is about. Is that interaction that you have, people just enjoying being around each other, celebrating something that they love.
Well, and Brock, you put out a survey after the con. What sort of responses do you get?
Fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Mostly. Not every response is essentially that, but for the most part, had a great time. Like you said, our like I said, I can't sing our staff's praises enough. Everybody goes the extra mile to ensure that everybody's treated fairly, given the right information. We like you said, Leroy, or maybe it was you, Barrett. I don't remember y'all. Your words are
We
blending
talk
together.
a lot.
Yeah, I'm just in there just listening. Like, God, I wish these guys would shut up. No, you said you make it easy to get in. All the information is readily available. I pretty much manage most of the vendor contacts just via email. So I reply to most of the emails. On con weekend, people are like, "I'm cold. I'm not getting a response." I'm like, "Really? You think you're not going to get a response from me on Friday and Saturday and Sunday of the event? Ask your questions before." But yeah, we've developed a lot of good relationships with a lot of vendors, and most of their vendors come back year after year. So I know them. I know them on a first name basis, and if I don't know them on a first name basis, I know them on a face basis. So I just get a lot of the same responses. Great time, did very well, looking forward to 2025. When do we start? When do you start accepting registrations for 2025? That's a lot of the questions I get, a lot of the feedback I get, and I'm like, guys, it's been a week. Give me a minute. The account.
I'm still compacted. I haven't gotten to take a shit yet. Come on, man. Monsters are laid on Friday and Saturday night. There's not much that goes on during the day. We really don't even have time to eat a lot. Now it's gotten better. From the first couple of years, we didn't eat at all. We were just constantly running back and forth because, again, we were learning what we needed to do. Now people have roles. We have quote unquote department managers or area managers or whatever you want to call them, where like Amy runs the front. Steve and I will sometimes we'll run we'll have one or two people that roam around the not celebrity hall, the exhibit hall. The VR, the pinball, which we haven't even touched on yet, the vintage video game, those are kind of all run by third parties. They kind of run themselves. They're all turnkey, which is great. One less thing we have to worry about. Yeah.
But we're constantly making sure the panels are getting started on time. The celebrities need to get where they need to go. But through 9 years, we've kind of ironed out the wrinkles. We know where to go. We know who needs to be where. We print out schedules. Everybody kind of has their assignments. Everybody has their lane, and we all stay in our lane.
Well-oiled machine.
Yeah, for lack of a better word. Yeah, of course. Like I said, there are hiccups, but for the most part, it flows pretty smoothly. Obviously Peter Cullen this year was a big hit. We had to try to manage that line. Some people weren't happy about that. Well, I'm sorry. What do you expect when 500 people show up and then get an autograph? You can only do one at a time. Yeah. That's just kind of the nature of this. Go to GalaxyCon. You want to stand in line for 3 hours to go to meet somebody? Go to GalaxyCon.
MegaCon. Try going to.
That's even worse.
Yes.
So, I wanted to go back. And we can go another 30, 45 minutes if you guys want to, because we can talk about a lot of things. It's interesting to see the little red dot with the time up there. I don't know if anybody gets on the recording can see it, but
yeah, we see it.
Okay, I don't know if the audience can see it or not at some point, probably. But anywho, you talk about you talked about the guests and the fan interaction and how you guys interacted with them and how they impacted you. I get to see something completely different because I pick them up from the airport and I'll drive them back from the airport, and a lot of times it's one-on-one.
Yeah,
and so I get to talk to these people. And we don't talk about anything related to their work. We talk about all kinds of stuff. Like I picked up Kerry Payton on Friday night at 11:30. We're talking about all different kinds of things. He was born in Augusta. He didn't really live in Augusta very long, but people don't know that. And so, I don't think he'd ever been to South Carolina, or if he had, he'd been, he was a much younger kid. We went to CVS because he needed to go buy some things. Like we talked about kids. He has an 18-month-old. I would have never thought it. But we talked about being a parent and having young kids and all that stuff. So, on the way back to the airport with Matthew Watterson, voice of Magneto, we didn't talk anything X-Men. We talked stocks and bonds and investments and in real estate opportunities. I mean, we talked about all kind of things. I don't talk to these people about the stuff that, the fans are going to want to talk to them about, because they're going to hear it all day long on Saturday and all day long on Sunday. We talk about random shit when I pick these people up.
Yeah.
Like with Guy, I've got Guy's number. We text. Like we were texting for a couple of weeks before he got here and all that other stuff. He's like, do you have me a hotel room? Yes, Guy, I've got your hotel room. We got you taken care of. Oh, that's one of his first events, that he flew here and all that other stuff. And so, and then he was flying to Miami so that he could fly over to Ibiza to go to a concert for his birthday or something like that. So, I drove him and Cal Dodd and Allison back to Charlotte because they didn't want to change planes. Allison and Cal did not want to change planes. I said, okay, well, if there's enough of you that'll fly in and out of Charlotte, it's worth it to rent a car and drive back and forth. It's easy.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to hear them talk. And they talk more about what's going on in Toronto and the surrounding areas than they talk about anything related to work. They don't want to talk work. They don't want to talk shop. They talk about all different kind of things.
Adrian and I talked a lot about the Pacific Northwest. Because my sister lives out in Oakland, but she does a lot of travel. She does a lot of traveling up in there, and so we were talking. He lives on an island that
Vancouver area.
Yeah,
like
it's
well, I was just gonna say it's funny you say that. Like Amy, Ethan, and I came down for breakfast on Sunday morning. We walk into the Roost Chris for breakfast, and Watterson's sitting there, and we're like, I'm like, hey. He's like, hey. I'm like, you care if we join you? He's like, no. So we sit down and start eating with him, and then he finishes up, and he's like, I'm going to go back upstairs. And then Adrian walks in. We're like, hey, you want to join us? He's like, sure. So we end up having breakfast with Eastman. Paul, and I don't know if you guys know Paul, I say we have a Paul, tall, Wilmington Police Department Paul. Okay. He ended up talking to Peter Cullen.
You mean that giant reacher type of sized man that you had blocking, saving Peter Cullen from the fans? Yeah.
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 When I
Everybody
tell people,
knows Paul.
Yeah, when I tell people we have a Paul, and I told this to Cullen's agent and his wife, they're like, what about security unruly?
Oh, we lost Brock's audio for a second. Hold on, Brock.
Hold on, Brock. We can't hear
Brock,
you.
if you can hear me.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
It said your audio cut out, huh? It says make sure the recording device has enough space.
Is this a continuation, or will it be two videos you have to splice together?
It's very easy for me to splice it together. So as long as it's back to record, is it back to recording for you?
Yeah.
Yes, it's actually
okay, good. Okay. So yeah.
You can edit all that other stuff out. And go.
Yeah.
No, we do. I was talking to Cullen and his agent and his wife and all and whatnot, and they're like, what do you do about this? What do you do about that? I was like, listen, you guys don't have to worry. We have a Paul. And they're like, what? I'm like, just take my word for it. We have a Paul. I'm like, he's Wilmington Police Department. He likes to kick in doors. We have a Paul. You will be perfectly safe. And he literally stood there and kind of acted like a bodyguard for most of the weekend. And by the end of the weekend, they absolutely loved him to the point where they actually might want to fly him to Chicago to work with them on a couple of different shows. So, but my point is, like, on Friday, after everything kind of wrapped up, in between running back and forth to the airport, from the airport hotel, vice versa, several people went into get a drink because we all stay and we walk in there and Peter Cullen's just sitting at the bar all by himself. And I just walk up to him and I just said to you, Mr. Cullen, I just want to just thank you for coming. I really appreciate it. And then Paul sits down beside him and starts talking to him. Next thing I know, Paul texts me. He's like, yeah, I just talked to Peter Cullen for an hour and a half at the bar. We're sitting there drinking, chatting for an hour and a half and just about everything. I'm like, oh, you made a new best friend. Good for you. So, and I'm like I said, we have a Paul, and people don't understand it. But by the end of the weekend, they're like, yeah, you have a Paul. I'm like, yeah, we do. So
see, and I've worked for radio stations and Leroy, I know you've worked in TV and radio and things like that, when we interacted with, it was always much more professional. It didn't have that, element of, I guess, that personal level element when it came to like having a guest come into town for a concert, and that's not to say that any of them are bad people. It's just that because everything was handled at such a corporate level. I worked for ABC Disney for several years, and I worked in promotions and I worked in marketing and as an on-air DJ, getting to interview people and things like that. But it was everything had a handler, and every handler had its job to everything that had to be done. And I think one of the cool, because now knowing that you all stay at I'm going to come hang out at after I get set up on Friday.
We might need to edit that out.
I'll take care of it. But just the interactions, and I think that also speaks to the type of people that come to that you have as celebrities that come to the Comic-Con.
Well, I think you can pretty much read the level of availability that someone's going to give you when you have a 15 or 20-minute car ride from the airport to the hotel. And
Sure.
Is this person going to be cool? Is this person going to be somewhat stoic? Is this person going to be an ass? Fortunately, for the most part, everybody that we've brought in, and again, we're not batting 1,000 because nobody bats 1,000. But for the most part, everybody's been cool and down to earth. And again, I get to see a different side, and Steve does too, because Steve does airport runs as well. People are like, "Why don't you just get a car service?" COVID killed a lot of the car services around here. It just really did. And it's just,
Gotcha.
it's just sometimes it's just easier just to rent it and do your own thing. So
yeah,
and we're reliable. We know we track everything. I'm very anal retentive when it comes to details, so I have everything kind of mapped out. All that, and that just comes from the nature of what I do. But you see the real side of these people, and for the most part, they're genuinely, most of them. Again, some of them think pretty highly of themselves, but most of them don't. Like Vanessa Angel, for example, last year, the sweetest lady. We talked about all kind of things, like she was talked about people she dated, and there was we talked about in Raleigh and all this other stuff. And I said, I just want you to know you were like my teenage crush, and I just I didn't say if you invited me up, I'd come knock on the door, but I wouldn't have said no. But you really, if the people are just they really are a whole lot different. They're not really a whole lot different than the average person. They just have a different job, and people just know their name. They know who they are. That's really the only difference. And people like a lot of people think that celebrities make a ton of money. They don't actually. A lot of the voice actors, I talked to a lot of them about kind of the business side of it. They don't make a lot of money. That's why they do a lot of these events. It actually helps boost their income, especially on the anime side. You'd be surprised, or maybe you guys might not because you've worked in the industry. I was shocked at actually how little they make relative to what actors or whatever like. And that's one thing I talked to Waterston about. He never really understood the whole thing about the anime because he's like, they'll want to pay you, $500 or $1,000 a week to do this. So I'm like, okay, if you're making $1,000 a week, that's $52,000 a year. That ain't much money in the grand scheme of things.
No.
But then he comes to realize, oh, well, if I voice this one character and that character takes off, you can make 10x 2 to 3 weekends a month if you want to. That's where the rubber meets the road right there. And so that's why a lot of these people are getting into this because, look at the success of One Piece, for example, or My Hero, or Hunter x Hunter, or Demon Slayer. Demon Slayer, wink, wink, characters from Demon Slayer, wink, wink.
Wink,
right? Wink, wink. So, but what I'm,
it's like a teacher giving you the answer to the test.
I'm not saying this is going to be on the test, but the business side of it has kind of evolved to where they have to look at events like ours and across the country as a true second, income.
Well, I would probably get beaten if I didn't ask this question because my wife and kids watch a lot of anime, including Demon Slayer, but they watch the original with the original voice actors in Japanese, and because the kids are learning Japanese. Nice. What would it take to actually get the Japanese voice artists? And the only reason I say that is because that's one of the things that I have heard is that I watch Demon Slayer, but I watch it in Japanese. I know these voice actors. They recognize the voice actor from Demon Slayer is the same from One Piece is the same from Titans,
Attack on Titan,
or whatever the Titan. Yeah, Attack on Titan, right?
It would be rather difficult, and I say that simply because of the market that we serve. If we were in Los Angeles or a major market, a Chicago, a New York, a Houston, Seattle, whatever, maybe even Charlotte to a lesser extent. Most of these people, if not all of them, live and reside and work in Japan. And I don't know about you boys. I've never been to Japan, but from what I understand, it takes about 2 days to get there, if not one full day of travel, and then at least another full day to almost kind of
get to the side of the country.
just to kind of, not only that, but just kind of, what's the word?
The logistics are near impossible.
What is it?
Acclimate.
That's the word. Yep, there we go. Yeah.
I'm going to clip that.
No, acclimate. Don't clip that. That's a great blooper. It takes a day or so to acclimate. And so if you were going to bring somebody like that over, I mean, you're looking at least a week worth of housing. Babysitting's not the right word, but a week's worth of housing or again, I don't know, what do you call it when you, have a house guest or something like that, similar to that. So it's just very hard. Now, like I said, if we were on the West Coast, it'd be a lot easier. But it's just logistically, it's extremely challenging. There's a guy who's, and I've never watched the show. Apparently there's a show called Bluey.
Yeah, Bluey.
Yes.
Yeah,
and
fantastic.
The lead voice actor for Bluey has done a couple of shows, but Bluey is based in Australia. And so it takes a lot of planning to bring someone like the lead from Bluey to the United States, especially on the East Coast of the United States, to do a show. I can't say that we haven't looked at that particular voice actor, but it's really hard to coordinate. And flights are ridiculously expensive. I mean, you're talking $5,000 plus, and these people aren't flying coach. So, it's very challenging. I mean, for us, to a lesser extent, it's still challenging to get people from, California into Columbia because there's no direct flights. A lot of people don't want to change planes. And I'm like, you ain't got a choice. You're going to have to change planes. Now, fortunately, CAE has gotten smart, and they have a CAE to DFW to LAX flight. And it flies, 2 times a day, something like that. So, and then if we need to go, you can go to Chicago, go to O'Hare, which is ORD. I'm learning my airport codes because of this. But, so fortunately, Columbia goes as far as Dallas and Chicago, and then those flights connect into major other cities on the West Coast. So fortunately, we can get most people in pretty efficiently. And there's actually a flight that generally leaves around 6:30, goes to DFW, then continues to LAX on Sunday evenings, so we can get people out. Like, these are the logistic things that people don't think about. Like, oh, how do you get people in and out? Well, you got to kind of plan. But bringing people overseas, we've looked at people that have a residence in the UK and bringing them over here. A little easier. Flying across the Atlantic, but still, again, presents logistical challenges that, we aren't quite ready to tackle. Some of the X-Men characters came from Canada. That, that's an international flight, so it takes a little more planning and a little bit more time, for them to get in and out.
Well, kudos, because not knowing all of the logistics that it takes to get those celebrities here from all over the country, and then in Canada this year, that takes a level of effort that I will just say kudos, because and we appreciate all the work that you and your staff do to get it all taken care of, and for it to basically look like there were no defects, that there wasn't anything that occurred at the surface that I knew about. I didn't know anything about the controllers or the iPads or whatever, because that could have been a serious hang up that I guess it could have had an impact and ripple effects, literally down the line.
Well, it would have just slowed down the process. That's all. And it would, and we've taken it upon ourselves to become more efficient in the admissions process. And, we don't, if you get 2,000 or 2,500 people show up on a Saturday morning, you don't want people standing in line for 2 to 3 hours. Now, knock on wood, we have been blessed with nice weather the last 2 years. The weekend on August was not super hot. The weekend before that, year before that rather, was in the 70s. So of course, for our 10-year, it'll be raining cats and dogs, right? So we'll just get screwed on that. But for the most part,
you survived 2015.
We did.
Yeah.
So, I mean, nothing can be worse than the 1,000-year flood in 2015. Let's be honest.
Careful what you say, because Steve was here in 2015, and then 3 weeks ago or whatever in Wilmington and Brunswick County, wherever he lives, they got like 20 inches or 22 inches of rain in 24 hours, and that categorizes them for a 1,000-year flood. And so he's lived through 2,000-year floods in like 9 years. So again, careful what you say, man.
Yeah, because I remember 2015, and I remember it, and I was like, oh, they're still doing Soda City? I was like, bravo! I was like, that's ambitious. As I'm doing the news and I'm watching a dumpster float down Rosewood live on television, I told
because Mary King was out there on Rosewood. I don't know if you guys remember Mary King. She was at WIS, but I texted Mary King and I go. If there's any debris larger than you, you might want to consider standing back away from not in the water. And she messaged me back and she said something about how that was where her news director told her that she needed to stand. And it's like, I know we don't have a lot of natural disasters here in Columbia, but news directors could potentially take maybe a lesson from the ones that got bitten by snakes or whatever from the 2015, because it was a reporter. She doesn't even work in news anymore, but she apparently had something brush up against her, got tetanus, and got sick for lockjaw or whatever for weeks.
And for the record, I do remember Mary King. She is not bad to look at. She's a pretty girl.
She is one of the most genuinely kind people in the world.
She is very nice. She's very
super nice.
Yes.
And if she's watching this, absolutely all the best that she's got going on in Charlotte.
Good for her.
Because moving from Columbia to Charlotte's, I think what market is Charlotte? Charlotte's
15,
like what?
15, 17.
20, it's in the 25.
It's a top 25 market. Yeah.
Yeah. And Columbia is what? We're 83.
73, 75.
It
wasn't
right
always
in that
that
70.
way.
Yeah. Low 70s. Yeah.
It wasn't always that way. But that's awesome, because Columbia, I think the 2020 census put 1 million people between Lexington and Richland counties now. I mean, it's growing, and I'd love to see a larger facility for Soda City Comic Con. And it's up to the city.
Yeah, well, it's a city county and potentially a state thing. The state's going to have to kick in a little bit, but we are, at least I am, because again, I'm the boots on the ground here, but I am one of I'm probably one of the loudest and biggest proponents for expanding the convention center. I always participate. I participated in studies and surveys that they've had. They did a 20th anniversary video. I can send you that link later, Barrett, and it talks about it. And I'm in that video. And part of the footage, the B-roll or whatever that they had for me, was talking about expanding the facility and how we've outgrown it. I mean, we really have. There's not really any additional space that we could rent and use in the facility. We're not capped out from a capacity standpoint. We can have more people, and I want more people to come. I want more people to experience, because again, if you say that there's approximately 1 million people, 425,000 households in the greater Columbia area, when you factor in West Columbia, Lexington, Blythewood, the Northeast, Casey, Chapin, all those areas,
Hopkins,
all those areas, and we're tapping out at 10,000. I mean, that's 1%. And that's not 10,000 local people, because we have about 20 to 22% that travel outside the DMA. Leroy will know what that means. Greater than 50 miles. But, so we're still only getting, 88 to 8,500 local people coming to the show, and then 22 or so, or 2,500 or so, give or take, plus or minus 2 to 3% on that, that travel from outside the local market. the sky's the limit. There's no reason we couldn't have a 15 or 20,000 person show. We probably have to go to 3 days. I don't really want to do that, but numbers may force that unless they expand the facility, which they will. It's just a matter of aligning stars. I mean, they're going to have to. They're missing out on too much.
Yeah. Well, I'll just put this out there. I got lots of PTO by the time August comes around that I got to burn. No, I don't. We have unlimited PTO. I don't know why I say that.
I wish that was the case where I work.
Look, I will just say this. Companies that offer unlimited PTO do it because, one, they know they don't have to pay anybody when they quit for any unused PTO. Two, they don't have to carry over any PTO. And three, people that have unlimited PTO wind up not using as much PTO in the course of a year because they don't acknowledge that there's a bank of PTO that they have to use.
Interesting.
So it has its limitations, but I also don't have to burn PTO if I get sick. So it's just, it's one of those benefits. And if I stick with this company for long enough, then I'll take more advantage of it. But yeah, no, I think I guess the last thing I want to ask Brock, as far as what takeaways from Soda City Comic Con are you potentially looking at to use, specifically something that worked this year at Soda City that you're going to use at Wilmington and Boardwalk?
Didn't you have a thing?
What he meant to say was the All About Nothing podcast. There it is.
Well, I did invite you to come to Coastal this past year, and you couldn't come. So I definitely want you guys to come. Coastal's is essentially kind of built out. Like there's not really much to change about Coastal. The building, when you guys are up there next March, you'll see the buildings. It's kind of odd. It's not built for ticketed events. It's just not. So we had to pivot with admissions last year or this past March. But once we kind of got that ironed out, we'll kind of have. It's really basically got a junior ballroom, an exhibit hall, and a ballroom. That's basically three major areas. And there's like just long hallways. Concourses is what they call them. But Myrtle Beach will be interesting because you kind of got your 3 salons, A, B, and C, and then you've got like the hallway outside, and then you've got like a little meeting area in front of A, or a pre-function area, what do you want to call it, where you kind of do some admissions, and it'll be interesting to see how Myrtle Beach works out. The one thing that I can tell you that we're going to take from show to show to show is just our staff. I mean, they're just so great. Again, I cannot sing their praises enough. I can't thank them enough. Without them, this wouldn't be possible. We wouldn't have near the amount of success and have grown to the heights that we've been able to grow without our staff. You guys got to come. You got to cover it. And Leroy mentioned at one point, I'll put him on the spot, that he wanted to do kind of a behind the scenes and like follow around, kind of like a documentary style. That would, if you're going to do it, building from the ground up, Myrtle Beach would be the one to start with, because that's truly like cool. A starting from the ground to see how it all kind of comes together. I think that'd be fun. Let's just see what else. I mean, I don't know. Comic-Con at the beach is going to be it's just going to kind of be interesting. I think Myrtle Beach could be a great event. I think that there's a desire amongst the community at Myrtle Beach to have an event that they can say, like, this is our event. People like to claim, Soda City, this is our con, this is our event. This is our team. We're going to root for them. Myrtle Beach doesn't have anything like that. And it's Myrtle Beach. Yeah.
Does Myrtle Beach or Coastal or Wilmington have any limitations to it? Like, I know one of the things with Columbia, and I mentioned it to you at one point, was the idea of maybe having food truck vendors that were showing up, but we can't do that because the city doesn't allow for the food trucks across from their private or their publicly owned convention center that has food.
Wilmington's a big fat no. Myrtle Beach is a maybe. Myrtle Beach is a maybe. Yeah, that's. I've inquired about that. Not necessarily a food truck, but my friend Peter, who runs Silver City Mugs, that does the old timey soda.
Oh,
yeah,
so
that's
good.
he and I have become thick as thieves. Like that's one of my buddies. In fact, I'll probably call him in the next day or two now that he's on top of mind. But he has come and done events at Myrtle Beach before, concerts and whatnot. And I asked them, is it possible for a food vendor of whatnot to come in and do it? And they're like, yeah, we can work it out. So he works it out with the in-house caterer in Columbia. Wilmington has flat out said no, whatever. But Myrtle Beach is willing to at least listen. So we'll see. Yeah,
that's great. That's great.
I would love to have a couple of food trucks parked out front. I think that keeps people there.
Yeah, not only that, but it also brings in more of it in I'm trying to think of the word, but it creates more of a Columbia environment that allows for participation of other local businesses in it that might not necessarily have the capital to be able to invest in as a vendor in the Comic-Con, but it's I think it's really cool. I look forward to August. I look forward to March. I look forward to
not
October,
in that order, everybody, because that's not how the calendar works.
You know what?
Okay, he has
before Julius
he has a Georgia
Caesar,
education. It's okay.
Georgia, it's a Georgia education. Thank you, sir. And I know why the calendar doesn't work like that anymore. It's because of Julius Caesar and Augustus. So thank Augustus Caesar. So AP World History right here. I don't.
They don't teach that anymore.
They don't teach AP World History anymore?
No, they don't teach history anymore.
Oh, well, yeah. That's true. That's true.
Attention. 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 Attention.
Get ready, South Carolina. Meet your favorite legends. Pose with iconic characters and dive into exclusive panels that will blow your mind. Join us at the Myrtle Beach Convention Center for 2 action-packed days. Whether you're a superhero or super fan, this is your convention. Boardwalk Comic-Con, where fandom comes alive. Surf's Up Comic-Con.
The All About Nothing podcast is produced and engineered by me, Barrett Gruber. Thanks to Cake for our intro music, Sick of You. You can follow everything Cake the band at cakemusic.com. Thanks to Muff the producer for our outro music. You can follow Muff on Instagram at Muff the producer. I am Barrett Gruber. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Barrett Gruber or visit my linktree /Barrett Gruber. Want to support the show? Visit our webpage, theallaboutnothing.com, and become a member. There are several tiers available, including memberships that give you early access to episodes as well as exclusive content. Visit theallaboutnothing.com. To find links to our social media, merchandise, and past episodes, visit theallaboutnothing.com. If you'd like to be heard on the show, you can call and leave us a message. Dial 803-672-0533. If the time between these episodes is more than you can handle, check out our partner podcast. Zach and I host What the Pod Was That with Carrie Simmons. Visit whatthepodwasthat.com for links and details. Me takes a deep dive down the rabbit hole in episodes of Welcome to Wonderland. Available on all the podcast platforms. Visit WTWLpod.com for details. As well, you can listen to the political and social conversation between Dr. Jamela Brooks and Bill Kimmler on Black, White, and Blue in the South, available wherever you listen to podcasts. Please subscribe and share this show. If you're on YouTube, please like and hit the notification bell. Thank you for listening. The preceding podcast is a product of Big Media and copyright 2024, all rights reserved.